Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining the girls. We are going to off to another great start here, Janine. We have a wonderful season of the holidays coming up, and it's one of my most favorite times of the year, not only because of the decorating and the food and the fun, but we like to get together as a family, you know.
Yes, our traditions. Everyone has traditions out there, right?
Mm-hmm. We have some new traditions, too, since our grandkids are getting older. We decided to start going on family trips, and we went on one last year, which was great. So we're planning on trying to get maybe to one or two this year. So what part about the family get-together do you like, your tradition?
Oh, I love the whole holiday hustle, bustle, not on the shopping end of it, but going to holiday parties and going to functions and going on vacation. So we like to...
The social part, we like that part.
Take the kids and just get away and have fun.
Yeah, that's the most important thing I think about it. I don't know, everybody has their own traditions and things that they look forward to, but it just seems like involved in every single one of the traditions seems to be that gathering and that the closeness, maybe doing some things that you haven't had an opportunity to do. You get dressed up and you get to act like an adult. Sometimes
and act like an adult. I don't know if you're acting like an adult because you're dressed up. I also am starting a new tradition this year that I just remembered about. My husband and I are going to be doing a race on Thanksgiving morning.
Oh boy.
So we are going to be including that in our traditions to, you know, include health and fitness and involve some of our friends with getting together and going on a 9-mile run.
So you're going to run before you come to
Mom's house. Run like a turkey and then eat the turkey.
Right, before you come to Mom's house, and then you could have some of the stuffing and all of the other mashed potatoes and things that you don't normally eat throughout the year.
That's a kind of neat, cool tradition to start.
Well, everybody has unique things about them, and you know, on today's show, we have a very wonderful guest. She's a returning guest, Dr. Sylvia Lafair, and she's written several books. And on this show today, we're going to talk about unique, being unique.
Being unique and getting you happier on the job. Surveys say about 80% of people go to work and they're miserable and they dread it, and it shouldn't be that way. We want you happy at work, and there are things you can do on your own to improve the quality of your life on the job.
Well, stay with us, because when we come back, we're going to be joined by Dr. Sylvia Lafair. Be right back.
Well, 80% of people go to work and they dread it. Is that you? We're going to talk about it here today on The Girls with our returning guest, Dr. Sylvia Lafair. She has written several books. The book we're focusing on today is called Unique, and we're excited to have Sylvia back with us to help us out here and get you happy. Get you happy at work, because happy employees means more productive employees.
And it's a good day at work.
It is. It is.
Sounds good to me.
So how are we getting people happier at work? Is it all about money?
Oh, I wish it were. It would actually be easier. It's about how we get along with each other. And it's about how much we know about each other and how much we can appreciate each other. And I can't go into a lot of the new research about the brain, but we know that when we meet somebody that we like and we can work with, and it's a happy time, we have hormones that shoot out in us that are the happy hormones. And so we don't have to drink to get happy or eat to get happy. We can talk and become happy. But how do we get there? We have to learn how to know each other better. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, how do you get to know each other better? You can get to relate to the people you work with, but it's the crossing over the line part that sometimes I think you get worried about at work. So how do you know how much to share with people?
Well, I think that's something that can be taught at work. See, we grew up thinking, most of us anyway, that work is separate from home. And you go to work and you do what you do and you leave, and then you have another life, and you can joke and laugh there, but at work you can be very serious, or the opposite. You can joke and work at work and be very serious at home. We have to learn to be who we are, and so a big piece of it is understanding our story. And story right now is very, very popular in the workplace. The question is, what are we learning? What kind of stories are we telling? I'm not talking about the gal who comes to work and tells her sob stories about what happened with her boyfriend. That can get old too. Or somebody who's always relating their physical ills. That can get old too. But once we learn to see each other differently, something happens. I've watched it for years, and it is amazing. And I'll tell you how it started. My background was as a family therapist, and I moved into leadership development and team building from that. But when I was a family therapist, I would hear stories. I mean, that's what I did all day long. I would hear stories, people's stories, and I would ask questions so I would go deeper. And I remember one day there was a gal, and she was sitting there, and I watched her mouth, and all I could hear was blah, 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 and I thought, oh, I better get out of the field because I can't even hear. Till I asked a story about what it was like for her as she was a child growing up. And she started telling me about what she had to do for her mother, who was ill, and how she had to take care of. And you saw that as a nurse, I'm sure, a lot, Debbie. And as she sat there, she began to change in front of my eyes. She literally looked nicer. And I thought to myself, this is early on in my career, and what I learned was there's a certain amount of compassion that we have for each other when we hear each other's stories. So we began, as I went into the workplace, to say, how much can we tell and what is the right amount? And sometimes a little is enough. So it led to what is in the unique book, and it creates teams that are more cooperative and more helpful. And there are different levels of telling what needs to be said at work that you can learn to understand and work with.
So if someone does not like their job because they work with maybe a supervisor or a manager or that one person in the office that drives them crazy, is there a way for them to hear their stories, to at least rekindle, refocus, regroup, have a better time at work while they're there?
You know, it's interesting, Janine, because so many times people go home and then they spend the rest of the night complaining about Joe or John or, you know,
Mary
or Janine.
Susie.
Or somebody, not you, another Janine. Right. And so what we do is we teach people how to ask questions. And one of the things that is really important is to tell, what is something that you did as a child? What did you like? You know, we can all go back and relate more at that childhood place. So when we do programs, one of the questions is, you know, what are some of the stories you heard? Now, sometimes they're pretty difficult stories, and I'm not suggesting that people talk about everything all the time. We teach work is not a rehab facility. You know, on the other hand, as we get to know each other, and there are specific ways of looking at how to tell your story, compassion shows up 99.9% of the time.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You say about sharing with each other at work and telling stories. When is it appropriate to do that? You just come in one day and go over to someone at their desk and say, oh, Mary, you know, I was just sitting thinking about, I really don't know you that well, so what was it like growing up? How do you incorporate these stories into your workplace, and when is it appropriate? You're there to work. So do you sit around telling stories all day? Do you wait for lunchtime? Do you wait till after work and suggest you go out and have a drink? I mean, how do you incorporate these stories?
I think they can be done at different times. Lunchtime is great. If there's somebody there that you're having a problem with, you know, bring a cup of coffee or some tea over and sit down and just say, boy, I saw this great movie and it reminded me of something that happened to me as I was growing up as a kid, or it reminded me of something that I saw the other day. And then you don't force it on them, but you give room, space to listen.
So you're looking for that authentic self to pop out naturally.
Exactly, Debbie.
Okay.
Exactly.
A big thing at work is trust. Whether you work in a big corporation or a small company, you still need that trust. So how do you build that trust at work?
Well, we go in to do team building programs, and that for me is what creates the safety, because there's somebody else over there who can lead the thing. And when people become vulnerable, you talk about authenticity. A big piece of authenticity is being vulnerable. And this just happened yesterday. I was at a meeting, and there are two men who are, they're at each other. And you know, they're macho, and so they're both, it's almost like who blinks first. But I was with one of them, and he said to me, "This last year has been so tough on me, Sylvia." And he said, "I've really been afraid." Now, you would never expect the word afraid to come out of his mouth. And I said, "What if you and the other guy had a beer together, or tea together, or water together, I don't care, but just something where you'd be together?" And you don't have to say to him, "I'm terribly afraid," but to say, "You know, what has happened between us has made me really nervous. And what about you?" It's just like that. People start to melt down. So we created, in our leadership program, we take people to really look deeply at their stories and what has happened as they were growing up, and how that's affecting them now, and how it affects how they work.
All right.
Well, we're going to stop right here. We're going to go off to a commercial break. You could call all your friends, like I always tell you too. If you're just joining us here on The Girls, you can catch the rest of the show on ssptv.com if you'd like to. But we're going to come back with Dr. Sylvia Lafair and learn more about what it's like to be unique and how to tell your story.
Welcome back. You're watching The Girls here on SSP TV and ssptv.com. Our special guest is Dr. Sylvia Lafair, and today we're talking about, are you happy when you go back to work, or when you go to return to work? Are you dreading those Mondays? Some people dread Mondays, and we're talking about how storytelling can really make a difference in people's lives, in the relationships at work, and how you can really make a difference in your own life. You want to go home and you want to be, you know, happy and healthy and really excited about what you do on the job. So the book is unique. A lot of stories in here, and we're going to talk about some powerful stories today.
I did read the book, and I found one of the stories in there to be very powerful, and it's right with the times, I believe. If you'd like to share some of that, what happened that day during one of your seminars with one of the people who are taking your course.
It was one of the most fascinating things that I've experienced and observed others in. So you have to picture this. We have this leadership program. It's a 4-session course. So you meet 4 times over 6 months, okay? This is the very first night of the first session. So people are kind of looking around saying, what am I doing here, and who are these other people? And there was one man in there who was a doctor who owned a medical device company, very well-to-do, wanted people to know he was, you know, an MD and had this company, but also very personable, and his name was Mike, okay? Now, prior to coming into the program, there are about 15 people in the program. They're small programs because we do a deep dive into story, especially in the second session. This is the first night. He had called me prior and said, "Sylvia, there's something I want to tell you. I don't know if I'm right for the program." And he told me his story. He said, "Will it upset other people?" I said, "Some will, some won't, but it's your story. And it's the truth." This is before what I'm going to tell you had become headline today. So we are sitting this first night, and everybody sharing a little bit about who they are and short versions of their story, you know, why they're there and what they want to get out of the program. And we're finished, and people are ready to go have some tea or wine and some dessert and sort of relax before the next day. And he said, "Well, there's one more thing I'd like to say." And I thought, not tonight, not tonight. But his mouth was already open. And so everybody looked at him, and he said, "Well, to be very authentic, good word. He said, I want you to know that I was born Michelle.
Who?
And the room froze. And I looked around, and people are like deer in the headlights. And he said, you know, I did have a sex change operation, and it was before, you know, Caitlin was on television making this more known. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he said, I want you to know, and at the evening it was pretty much done, and I thanked him, and I thought, oh, the timing for me could have been better, but it was what it was. And I watched the people who walked over to talk with him and other people who went over and kind of moved away from him. But that's his story, right? So the next morning, another man who was a big, brawny head of sales of a business came over and he said, I'm leaving. I said, why? He said, how could you let him, her, into this program? I said, but Mike is a human being who's, you know, wanting to do what's next in his work life and build his business, and he has a lot of employees. Anyway, he said, well, I think it's irresponsible. And I said, well, we have a difference of opinion. He said, I'm leaving. Just tell everybody that I had an emergency. I said, absolutely not. I said...
Elaborate on what the emergency was, because I remember this story to be so much of an impact later. What did he say about his child having an accident?
No, that was
okay,
later.
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
you
sorry.
got it.
I'm jumping ahead.
Here he was making up an emergency to get the heck out of there.
That's what I meant. He made up the emergency that his son had an accident.
No, well, right, let me put it in a little context. Yeah, thank you for that, Debbie. But he kind of pushed it away. An emergency, and there was an accident. And he just pushed it away.
So he wanted to make up an excuse, not the real reason why he was leaving, but he wanted.
Oh, he wasn't going to tell them. Yeah,
exactly.
He just wanted to get the heck out of there. And he did. And the group sort of had to process, you know, what did this mean? Well, it ended up that, you know, they gathered together and everybody had a story. Some a little more dramatic, some this was, you know, a big deal. But as Mike shared with people what had happened and how he had made the decision and how his family accepted him and how his life came to be, everybody in there changed. I think it is that kind of thing that one moment, one sentence, one thought can begin to help you see things differently. Now we have to fast forward. So this guy was gone. He was out of there.
He was out of there. The people in the room, too, I believe that they connected on some level with something. As you said, they didn't have a relationship, or they couldn't relate maybe to his initial decision, but they probably related to his story or parts of his story.
The humanness.
The humanness. That's what we're talking about, the humanness. And as time went on, one of the men in there, this was way after the program was over, said, you know, my son came home and said he was gay, and he said, if I hadn't met Mike, I would not have had compassion. But having met Mike, I was able to accept this on a whole different level. But the other piece of this story, which Debbie was alluding to, is some years go by, and this man calls and he said, can I come into the leadership program?
This is the man who had left.
The man left. He said, can I come into the leadership program? And I thought, you've got to be kidding. I said, say why? He said, Sylvia, I've learned a lot in these years in between. And he had a child who did have an accident, and the medical device that Mike's company made was something that his child needed. And he said, can I get in touch with him? And I said, you know, certainly that's up to you. But he came back and he went through the program. And he learned, you know, that we have such shields in front of ourselves, and we can be so combative with each other until we hear the stories. And it's what's in the news now, everywhere. Everywhere, it's what's in the news.
I think some people are just too rigid in what their beliefs are and what they were raised with. And once they break through that and realize that we're just human beings, no two people can be alike. So if you're expecting me to be the same as you are, you're going to be disappointed. because no two people are alike.
We also
That's what
talked
the
about
uniqueness
this
is.
in our country right now with the division of, you know, culture and diversity and people really not knowing each other's backgrounds and cultures. We really need to bridge that gap and learn about each other, as you're saying. Come together, tell your story, learn about each other, and really it's about acceptance, the humanness. I love that.
Yes, and Sylvia, the thing that I love the most about your suggestion for story is if I don't understand your religion, maybe it would be nice if you explain, or if I can be interested enough to find out about what your religion is. You could be more accepting because people fear the unknown.
Exactly.
So if we really do know something
change.
about it, then why, you know, if we share that more, because a lot of people are familiar with Catholicism. It's in the news every day. We've seen the Pope, they made the big thing with the Pope coming, which it was, to the United States. But how many other religions does the majority of the public actually get to delve inside and actually get to know that as well? So you're saying with each person's beliefs as well, you have to extend your hand first to find out what that is. And that's what I love about the stories that you told about how each person was able to step up to that plate in their own little way at your workshop.
And how the circle went around, full circle, I should say, with the salesperson and the gentleman with the story, Mike.
That
one, that is just
you couldn't make that up.
life-changing how things go full circle.
You need everyone.
Yes. Yes, we're all in this together, right?
So,
we're all in this together.
What we're doing, because I believe that the workplace is an important place to create community. And I think a lot of the people who don't like to go to work are there because they're making judgments. I don't like him because of that. I don't like her because of that. Check it off, check it off. And they probably don't like me, so I'll stay away and I'll go home and I'll complain. But once, and again, I can't go into all the neuropsychology that's very new right now, but when we show compassion, we feel better, you know.
And people can get your books. There are 3 of them. Don't Bring It to Work, Gutsy, and Unique. They are available through all of the information up on your screen. They are very informative. You will take something home from the books, and hopefully it will get you happier at work as well.
Yes, and I strongly advise someone coming and taking one of your courses as well. They could get in touch with you, read the books, but definitely try and get the course so you can meet Sylvia, Dr. Sylvia Lafair. Fine author. She has so much knowledge in that little drama queen head of hers. We are so, so grateful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking time.
And we're excited about the next book. No pressure.
Are the girls going to be in the next book?
You want me to tell you the name of it?
Sure.
Yes. It's going to be for everybody, not just work, and it's called Complete It or Repeat It.
Complete it or repeat it. I love it.
And it's about the patterns that we keep doing, and unless we change them, you can change jobs, you can change spouses, you know, you can change cities.
Where you live.
Yep, but unless you change the patterns, you're going to be in the same situation.
Love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Well, watch for the release of the new book, Complete It or Repeat It, but for now you could go out and get the other 3 books. Thank you. We're always running out of time because we love our guests. Thanks for watching The Girls. We'll see you next time.